Chapter 3 Freezer. They now ran at a light jog through the halls. If a door was open, they would pause and check the inside. No living occupants were ever found, although the mechanic assumed they found several corpses. On 3 different occasions, Myers would peek into the door, give the clear command, then shut it. Nobody asked any questions. Nobody tried to pry inside. They kept moving at their pace through the winding corridors. LJ, who held the middle of the line, suddenly stopped, causing the men behind him to collide with him. "What the hell are you doing?" Morrison demanded. LJ held a finger up to where his lips would have been beyond his helmet. There was a faint and very distant wail. It sounded slightly masculine, although it was so far away it was hard to tell. Everyone went tense, paranoia gripping all their throats at once. They looked upwards from where the wail came, as if they could somehow see whatever it was through the metal ceiling. "Sounds like it's on the O3, spoke Goldwaith. His drawl was much thicker than their captain's. "Captain?" asked LJ in a hushed whisper. Myers stood, contemplating for a few moments. Finally, he spoke. "Detour." And so they moved. The mechanic could not for a second allow himself to lower the barrel of his pistol. Something inside him was perpetually whispering into his ear that just beyond the light of his flashlight, there was something lurking. Several times he thought he saw movement, so much that he almost pulled the trigger. Something swirling in the darkness, something lurching, something looking at him. He had already decided that he would give no warning when the time came, and he would merely blast whatever it was, in spite of his instructions. They arrived at a magnet-operated elevator. It was dead from the power outage. Myers punched in a code in the panel in the back of the lift, and a door slid open to reveal a ladder. The men climbed up. 3 stories felt long, like they were scaling the Empire State Building. They stepped off the ladder onto a platform, and the door slid open. More endless steel hallways rolled onwards. The moaning came again, a guttural cry of utter despair. They moved towards it. Sometimes it came loudly like the scream of a mountain lion. Other times the moan would come soft like a saddened lover. They came to an open doorway that led to another dining hall. Myers motioned them to move in. Flashlights scanned over every inch of the room, looking for any signs of life. This dining room was set more elegantly than the others. It was for the higher-paying customers. The table was inlaid with gold, the tablecloth embroidered so that an entire story was told within its folds. Gold candlesticks to light the dinner. The table had been set with turkey, ham, salads, and many other extravagant dishes. All of them had since gone cold. Blood had splattered the predominantly white tablecloth and dried into a dull brown. The mechanic looked at the stitching on the tablecloth, his mind becoming enveloped in the tale. The art was not immaculate, but rather supposed to be almost crude, like art was in the Middle Ages. It told of kings and queens and knights. They danced and frolicked, and at some point the fairies came into the mix. Men played instruments, knights waged war, and the dragon appeared. The rest of the story was obscured by a large splash of blood, which the mechanic tried desperately to convince himself was wine. His convincing didn't work. The moan came again, startling them, so fierce was it. It came with several loud bangs as well. It was as if something was pounding on the walls of its cage, enraged that it was entrapped. It came from the nearby door leading to the gallery. They moved into the large kitchen. The last room had looked like everyone had just up and vanished. This one was a full-on crime scene. Blood painted everything. Mangled corpses lay flayed open on the countertops and floors. Chunks of gore dripped from the ceiling every so often. The moan came again. This time, lower. They looked towards the source, the shut freezer door. The freezer had a padlock put on it, and it rattled as whatever was inside banged against the walls. The man who'd locked the door was slumped against a nearby wall, keys still in hand. The man had nothing left of his head but his lower mandible. Myers approached the door. "On 3, he whispered. 1, 2. The mechanic was suddenly transported somewhere horrifically familiar. He'd seen such horrors before, but he couldn't place where. Swamps filled with human blood. They were the mucous membrane inside the sinuses of some great being. Floating heads made entirely of fractals that one could be lost in and never return. The smell of rot was ever pungent, like sitting on a couch next to your dead mother. He could taste the spoiled breast milk in his mouth. Shadows cast in the light of a dying sun belonged to practitioners of a religion which had ascended to a new reality. There were 3 planets spinning around each other, ramming into each other, making war, attempting to eat one another. 3. The number 3 was important for something, but he could not place what. A metallic clash shattered the ethereal visions. It all melted away like chunks of meat running down an artist's canvas. It all melted away. Everything was cold. There was a gust of cold, and it was all he knew. "Wait!" The mechanic screamed, but it was too late. There in front of them was the source of the moaning. A somewhat chubby man, completely nude, blood frozen on his face from where he had raked the skin off with his own nails. He looked at them with a light of hope in his lidless eyes. "Help me," he said. They stared at him. The man suddenly lurched towards them. "Help me!" he screamed it this time. The roar of gunfire deafened the ears of all around. The room lit up as 3 AK-50 barrels all erupted at the same time. The man's body twitched this way, then twisted that way, each bullet jerking it in a new direction. His left arm melted to a stump. His second lost all its fingers and looked utterly mangled. His head was reduced to half a mandible, his torso a blood-soaked mess, and his legs unable to support the weight of the rest of his body. The bloody heap collapsed onto the freezer floor, splattering gore every which way. Gunsmoke filled the room, blocking their view. Their breathing came heavily as they waited for the smoke to clear. Something lashed out from within the gray haze. It wrapped around LJ, squeezing his head. LJ screamed like a banshee. Myers' gun clicked with the deafening sound of an empty chamber. Morrison fired off 5 more rounds without even knowing what he was shooting at. As the haze cleared, the creature became more visible, but not any less confusing. It was an utterly tangled mess of shredded limbs, eyeballs, and red tentacles. It looked as if a toddler god had been playing around with Play-Doh, and this was his first creation. LJ's head burst from the pressure, squirting crimson everywhere like a sprinkler filled with ketchup. Morrison felt an explosion of force rock his chest. He went flying backwards into the kitchen, colliding with a metal countertop. Myers backpedaled, pulling a grenade off his tool belt and throwing it into the freezer. He slammed the door shut, exactly 2 seconds before the explosive detonated. The door blew back open with a clang. Black smoke filled the air. The stench of putridity and burnt flesh invaded their nostrils. They all hyperventilated as they stared at the open doorway. "Don't look at it!" Myers screamed. He used the butt of his rifle to clobber Goldthwait. "Don't fucking look at it!" "The hell was that thing?" Goldthwait screamed back. The group's attention was now drawn on the inner conflict. "I don't know. I don't fucking know. But we have to move." The group just stared at him in utter shock. "I said, fucking move!" They darted into the hallway from whence they'd come, the threat of pursuit hot on their heels. They ran, completely oblivious to any sense of direction, just running. Dark blended with dark, the flashlight beams doing their best to try and grant enlightenment about their surroundings, but only revealing more metal corridors. They turned left, then right, then left, then right. A horrific game. There came a noise invading the mechanic's ears, creeping into his brain. Panic began to invade his body as he listened closer. Something thundered down the hall, coming towards them. 5 gun barrels all swung around at once, ready to take on whatever threat was coming their way. A troop of 7 people, 5 in guard uniforms, stopped just within the beam of the light. The 2 parties stood holding the guns, neither willing to drop first. Holy shit. "Golf squad?" Myers called after a pause which was entirely too long. "Juliet?" called the point man on the other side of the hall. Myers began laughing, all sense of peril gone from his being. It's so good to see a friendly face. An alive face. Likewise. The 2 parties went at ease with their rifles. What the fuck is going on? "He's here," said Myers. "Oh, his stay in the universe has been so long awaited." A chill ran down the mechanic's spine. Everyone was fixated on Myers as if he were Jonah the prophet speaking to the city of Nineveh. "I have no fucking idea either. It's a goddamn madhouse in there," he said as if repeating it for the second time. Golf squads swapped nervous glances. Their leader spoke on their behalf. Yeah, you can say that again." He was tensed and ready to fire. "We found this civilian in the mech berthing. Far as we know, last mechanic left alive. He's rolling with us." "Yeah, we found these 2 civvies hiding in their bathrooms. Do you have any idea what the fuck is doing this to people?" "Yeah." Morrison spoke up. "We have an idea." The sound of pattering boots came again, this time opposite from them. All but Myers turned guns at the ready. The comforting outline of the Spartan-like armor was seen before any hard details were. Everyone relaxed a little bit. "Tango Squad, is that you? This Juliet," Goldwaith called out. Myers chuckled. It begins. None seemed to hear him save the mechanic. "And it shall never end." Hey guys, so that was episode 3. I just wanted to thank you so much once again for listening. Music by Carl Casey, story by Warren Walker. Yeah, I mean, this last week hasn't had much going on. I'm recording this on Sunday night. Turns out, uploading videos actually does in fact take its toll on your internet, which is a Wi-Fi hotspot. So apologies if this one came out late. I'm going to try and prevent that from happening, but just if it did, I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I don't really have much to say this week. Once again, I'm pretty sure everybody here right now is people I, mostly know personally, although I have seen, some new faces crop up. And once again, if I don't know who you are, or, we haven't spoken, you just clicked on the video, you saw the link in, a chat or on Twitter, any of my social media, please say hi. Let me know what you thought of it. If you liked it, by all means, forward it to your buddies. I don't want to ever tell anybody to, buy my shit, because I figure you'll do that on your own if you want to. But I would ask that you, just forward it around to people you think might be interested in it. Who knows? You'll help me out, and maybe you'll help them find their next little hidden gem they've been looking for. So, yeah, that's really it for tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful night. God bless.